Okay, we already said this unit is on solving equations, so we keep going further and further in depth and more complicated as we keep going. So on the warm-up, this is what you just saw on 1.1, or part of it. We have to go through and solve. There is no parentheses, which means there's no distributive property, but there are like terms. Remember, if you do not see a number in front of a variable, it is an understood 1. So there's a 1 in front of that n. I'm going to add 1 and 9, which gives me a 10n. I'm then going to add the numbers that don't have a variable. A negative 10 and a negative 3 is a negative 13. And it's going to equal 27. I then have to get that 10n by itself. Since it's a negative 13, I'm going to add 13 to both sides. So I get 10n and it equals 40. And finally, I can divide by 10 and n gives me a 4. I'm going to go through and do the same thing over here. I'm going to combine my like terms. Here are my like terms. Use your calculator. There is a negative. We don't see the number. It's a negative 1 in this case. So there's my negative 1. I'm going to add the 1/4. And I get a negative 3/4 W. I drop my minus 3. And it equals a negative 15. I want to get my negative 3/4 W by itself, so I'm going to add 3. Negative 3/4 W equals a negative 12. I'm going to divide by that negative 3/4. Let's see if you can see this. So W equals 16. Whoa, sorry guys. So we did the distributive property and combined like terms separately in the last lesson, and now they're putting it together. So steps for solving equations. Simplify each side first if possible. Take care of the distributive property, then combine like terms. To isolate the variable, undo each operation. Check the solution by plugging it into its original equation. So we always have to look for that distributive property first, which means there's going to be a number attached to the parenthesis. So I'm going to draw my line. I like my line down my equal sign. Here is the distributive property. If you look, I did not box in that negative 2x, so I'm going to automatically bring down my negative 2x. And then I'm going to go through and distribute. Negative 4 times a negative 1x is a positive 4x. Negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8. And it also equals 26. Now I can combine like terms. Negative 2x plus 4x is a positive 2x plus 8, and it still equals 26. Now I'm back to that 1.1 warm-up. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. I get 2x equals 18. And finally, I'm going to divide by my 2, and x equals 9. Again, if you want to check your work, you can take your 9 and plug it in everywhere that you see x when you type it in your calculator. In the end, it should give you that 26. Okay, here's my next one. Here's what I need to distribute. This one looks a little funny. Okay, remember, if you don't see a number, there is one. It's a 1. In this case, it's a negative 1, so I have to distribute that negative. So when I do that, negative 1 times a positive 2 is a negative 2y. Negative 1 times a negative 5 is a plus 5. We have a minus 5 that I have to drop down. And then I have 14. Go through and combine like terms. This time our combined like terms are just numbers, so I have a negative 2y. Those numbers actually cancel out. You do not have to put a plus 0 there, so it equals 14. Divide by your negative 2. Y equals a -7. Again, I'm going to box that distributed property, and I'm going to go through and distribute. -4 times a -x is 4x. -4 times a -1 is a +4. This time I have a +2x, and I have a +3 still on that left-hand side, and it equals 43. So on this one, instead of just combining one set of like terms, we're going to have to combine two sets. So 4 plus 2 is 6x. 4 plus 3 is a +7, and it equals 43. I'm now back to that two-step, so opposite of adding is subtracting. 6x equals a 36. Divide each side by 6 because that's the number with your x, and x is 6. Okay, again, this next one, it's very similar to all the other ones that we have done. The only difference is all of our information that we have to work with first is on the right, so I'm going to drop that -11 first. I'm going to box in what I have to distribute. If you look, I did not box in that 3, so I'm going to drop that 3, and I'm going to start distributing. -4 times 2x is a -8x. -4 times 5 is a -20. I'm going to go through and combine my like terms, which are just numbers this time. So -11 equals a -17 minus 8x. I'm going to add my 17. We get -6 equals a -8x. I'm going to divide by my -8 because that's what's with my x. X equals a +0.75. Guys, do not freak out if you don't get a whole number. That's fine if you get a fraction or a decimal. Now, these two, I wanted to show you side by side because we're used to number 5. Number 5 is done the same way as what we did 1 through 4. And if we did this just goes back to two-step. I need to get my 2/5 x by itself. So my first step is to add my 8. 2/5 x equals 10. I can then divide by my 2/5, and x equals 25. So here's the problem. Normally we add or subtract first, then we multiply or divide. But that's not the case over here. They both have fractions. They both have something that they're adding or subtracting, but we have to be careful because this entire top piece is on top of my fraction. You have to get rid of this guy first. So a fraction means that you're dividing. So opposite of dividing is multiplying. So we're going to multiply the left-hand side by 3, and I'm going to multiply the right-hand side by 3. When I do this, the 3's on the left cancel. That was the whole point. I don't want the bottom 3 anymore. So I have 22 minus w, and it equals a -21. This is a positive 22, so I'm going to subtract 22. I have a -w equals a -43. W technically is not by itself. You have to have that positive variable. So remember, there's an understood 1 with the negative. I'm going to divide by a -1. So W is a positive 43 in the end. Okay, let's flip our notes over. On number 7, I'm getting a little bit tricky-ricky because I gave you fractions. Guys, don't be scared. You have a calculator. We're still going to go through and combine like terms just like we've done. So I have 2 x's, and here's my calculator. So I'm going to type in a 1, my fraction bar, and my 5. There's a plus sign, a 2, my fraction bar, and my 5. And it tells me 3/5. So I'm going to write down 3/5 x and it was a minus 4/5. If you look, I drew over that. So be careful, and it equals a 2/5. From here, we're solving like normal. I need to get my x by itself, so I'm going to add 4/5 to each side. Again, you have a calculator to do this, and I'm going to do it in my calculator. So you have 2 fraction 5 plus 4 fraction 5, and we get a 1 and 1/5. If you guys get an improper fraction, like a 6/5, that's fine. Leave it that way. Some calculators do that. My next step is to divide by my 3/5. Whoops. And now I need to show you how to type this in. So this can get tricky, and a lot of people mess this up. So when we have a mixed number, we have to type in 2 fraction bars. I'm going to show you why. If you do not type in a fraction bar behind this first 1, look what happens. That does not look like a 1 and 1/5. That looks like 11/5, and I do not want an 11/5. So you have to type in 1 fraction 5. This is saying this 1 is separate from the fraction that's at the back. I'm going to divide by 3 fraction 5, and it tells me it's 2. So out of all those fractions, we get a whole number of a 2. Okay, last one. The school has budgeted $2,000 for an end-of-year party at a local park. The cost to rent the park shelter is $150. How much can the student council spend per student on food if each of the 225 students is given a $3.50 gift? So again, the very first thing that I do is I find my total. My total that I can spend is $2,000. So I'm going to equal the entire equation to $2,000. From here, I'm going to see what I have to spend. The first thing they say is for the park rental. That's a one-time fee, so I'm going to write $150 one time. They then tell me that they want to spend something per person on food, and each student gets a $3.50 gift. So right now, I know that I'm going to have to purchase food and a gift for each person, which is why I put it in parentheses. Now, the next key piece is that's only for one person. We don't have one person. We have 225 people. So now we're going to simplify. I have to do my distributed property first. I'm going to underline it this time since I wrote it a little squished. So my 150 drops down plus 225F plus $787.50. And it still equals your grand total of $2,000. I'm going to combine my like terms. 225F plus $937.50. It still equals $2,000. I'm going to subtract my $937. These are really big numbers, guys. 225F 5F equals $1,062.50. And finally, I'm going to divide by that 225. So we're looking for food right now. So on food, they can spend $4.72 per person.